It's very interesting that in this country, in our legal system, we have guilty, we have not guilty, and we have not guilty by reason of insanity. We do not have any sort of plea for God told me to. And if you go to the Bible belts, the absolute Bible belts, with a judge who is an absolute believer, with an all fundamentalist Christian jury, and you go in front of that jury and your client says that she was told by God to kill her family, like the Yates case. She's told that. You don't get anybody in the press or anywhere saying, we better look into this and see if God told her to. We better check. I mean, that's a laugh line, and yet when you read the Bible, it happens over and over again. And religious people have this sense that they believe absolutely in the literal interpretation of the Bible, and all that's absolutely true, but has no application whatsoever to our time now. And just the fact that going into a court case and saying, God speaks to you and you hear voices, exactly like seeing the burning bush, exactly like is described in the Bible, is laying down the foundation for an insanity defense. It's weird that our court system that has in God we trust on the money and wants to put the Ten Commandments on the wall completely ignores the possibility that there is God in our lives.
All right, let's go to Tad. You there, Tad?
Yeah, hey, eyebrows and comb over. I think that first time win was a real man, and y'all are obviously gay lever.
Wow, the Christian love is just pouring down from above on us today. It's inspiring, really.
Yeah, if there are Christians out there, and you don't like somebody like that representing, although to be honest, he never claimed to be a Christian, but that's typically who we get calling objecting with things like that. That it's just pointless. I don't. Exactly. What was your purpose? All right, let's go on to Siobhan. Are you there? Hello?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm a good Christian woman. I just went to church, all right, and I know that the Bible teaches that you men are false prophets, all right.
Well, what exactly are you prophesying?
Excuse me, ma'am. I have an internet audio show that I do in addition to this show, and it's called The Non-Prophets. We say we are not prophets, so please don't accuse us of being false ones. We don't pretend to be prophets at all.
But the Bible says that any man that talks about God and he says he don't exist, it means that he's a false prophecy.
Okay, well then your Bible is wrong because we're not prophets at all.
Hey, and it's wrong in a lot of other places too.
Everybody knows the Bible is right. Everybody.
Not everybody. Okay, Hindus know that the Bible is right?
Mm-hmm.
No, they don't. Buddhists?
Maybe they have that thing that is like the Bible, only called something else.
Yeah, but it's not the Bible. And if you showed them the Bible, they'd say, oh, no, thank you. We don't believe in that. We believe in this other thing that we've got.
Well, what God do you believe in?
You know, only about a third of the people on the earth are Christians. You're aware of that, right?
No.
Yeah, that's a fact.
I know that you were rude to, I don't know, that caller that called us 3 times ago. You know, he good Christian man. He good man. I heard him.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for calling. Let's see if we get to try this one real quick. Wendell, you there?
Yeah, I think you need to get your dicks at each other.
That's exactly what I thought.
Close on that latest note of Christian love. Thank you. Thank you. We feel your religion's love for everybody descending upon us.
It's amazing.
But they will stand up and they will ask, if there is no God, what stops you from raping and killing everyone you want to rape and kill? What stops you from doing that? And my answer is always, you're absolutely right. I have raped and killed every single person I want to rape and kill. And that number is 0, you evil motherfucker! It's 0! It's a goose egg! And if your number is a positive integer, sign up for prison! Get the fuck out of our society! Because morality is more important than God. And we know that because you stupid motherfuckers say the sentence, God is good. And if morality is not more important than God, you don't get to say that. It doesn't mean anything. Unless there's some good that we believe in, some morality, then you can't say God is good. Then you just say God, whatever he does is okay. And according to the Bible, it kind of is. He does everything bad.
Mosques are blown up every day now in Baghdad by Muslims. Something that not everyone was ready to see or to understand. Places of worship, in fact, are practically never in the innumerable civil wars and strifes that I've covered. I don't think I've ever seen a case where a place of worship has been attacked by a non-believer, by a humanist or a skeptic or an atheist. It's always places of worship are desecrated and blasphemed by other believers. I think the last time that wouldn't have been true would have been in the Spanish Civil War, when the anarchists in Catalonia did burn the Catholic churches down. I remember George Orwell saying it was a mistake that they didn't get rid of the Sagrada Familia Cathedral in Barcelona while they had the chance. Perhaps a slightly heartless observation. But now, if it's in Bosnia, if it's a synagogue or a mosque destroyed, it's by Christian, Catholic, or Orthodox fascists. If it's in Iraq, if it's a Shia mosque, it's been destroyed by the Al-Qaeda forces, and if it's a Sunni one, by the forces of the Mahdi army. But we don't call them the parties of God, we call them insurgents. We don't even call them terrorists.
The press uses
So I think that is a huge capitulation. The fact is the parties of God have Iraq in their jaws, and they're tearing the society to death, and they're desecrating religious monuments and places of worship and pilgrimages every day, and killing children in religious schools. And we worry that a small paper in Denmark publishing a satire about the Prophet Muhammad might be offensive to Muslims. Aren't Muslims upset at the mass murder of worshippers in mosques? What kind of sense of proportion have we lost, quite aside from any sense of what's obscene, what's hateful, what's murderous, and what's truly offensive? Yes, 1,000 times yes, we have to say that.
And another point that is really, Christopher Hitchens makes this point in God is Not Great. He doesn't make it quite this impolitely, but you don't have to be smart to be an atheist. And that's what I've been trying to prove. You don't have to be as smart as these two to say, I don't know. And I think having people up there that are out of the sciences but love what comes from the sciences and also are able to say, I don't know and won't follow these rules and have that kind of self-possession, is a very important point to make. And I know I said that in a way that was a little bit funny, but there's no joke intended. You don't need to be Wile E. Coyote super genius to realize that these fairy tales are not true.
Christopher, I've got to call you down on referring to circumcision as genital mutilation. My son cried more at his first haircut than he did at his bris. And statistically,
you weren't doing it right then.
Statistically, the only long-term effect that it seems to have on people is it increases their chances of winning a Nobel Prize.
I can't find the compulsory mutilation of the genitals of children as subject for humor in that way, or flippancy in that way. Maimonides says very plainly that it's designed to repress sexual pleasure, to deprive a male child as far as possible of the opportunity of that. The full excision, not just the snip or the full mandatory covenant is fantastically painful, leads to trauma, leads to the dulling of the sexual relationship, and can be in itself life-threatening at that moment. We have the records, I can show them to you, of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds in the United States, boy babies who've died or had life-threatening infections as a result of this disgusting practice. That a person as humane as yourself can sit here and think of that as a fit subject for humor shows what I mean. Religion makes morally normal people say and do disgusting and wicked things, and you've just proved my point. Shame on you for saying what you just said. Shame on you for saying it about your own son, my God.
Let's move on.
Yes, let's. What next? Cutting the labia of little girls. At least Judaism doesn't do that.
This is a question.
What if a Muslim was to say to you just now, my little girl cried more at her first haircut than when I cut off her clitoris? What would you think of me if I was to say such a disgusting thing?
Well,
remember, we are not talking about detail here. We're talking about whether religion makes people behave better or not.
let's give the rabbi a chance. I wanted to move on, but let's give the rabbi a chance to respond to what
Christ.
because it got pretty personal here. So.
The press used the excuse that they didn't want to be offensive. They wanted free speech, but we have to respect and not be offensive. And you've kind of already touched on this, that the Muslim community, I think the press did not bring up the idea that these people were being manipulated by the clerics that you speak of. I would have liked to seen the press show those pictures of the clerics passing those out, and of the fact that this cartoon came out 3 months earlier and these people built it up to this thing. I'm just wondering how...
Yeah, well, to know that they were being spun, that's why I started that way. It doesn't begin as a panic response to oh dear, would we be offensive if we covered the story properly? It begins as an abject willingness to be manipulated in the first place, without protest or complaint, by a religious mafia, who can get you to jump through hoops, and to whom no one will say no, for fear of giving offense. So it's a self-sealing, self-reinforcing process. And in this case, you can't even say it's image and picture driven, because the one thing the media was the one thing it refused to be on this occasion. So it was utterly false to itself, as an institution, as a profession, and as a communicator or medium of information. Which means it's really it's quite a serious cultural defeat on quite a big issue, on quite a grand scale. And what is even more appalling to me is that it passed more or less without comment. I don't know if I've exhausted or am trespassing on anyone else's time, but if I haven't, I'm quite willing to be asked any other questions on any other topic. But I think they've come to take me away. I'm not sure. I sort of have that feeling. The hook is intruding onto me.
Regretfully and with great respect.
We're done?
Yes, sir.
Well, it's been real. And I think at fine bookstores everywhere there are some shards of my stuff. From now on, I'll only be nice to people who've got a receipt, okay? Thank you. This is America.
Well,